keep the money in your pockets.
Hey.
Please, the donation. I need the donation. Where is the money?
Starting a food called Help Send Karchi to WUTANG Chicken's Kitchen.
I would love to go to WUTANG Chicken's kitchen. My kitchen is bitchin'. WUTANG kitchen. Dude, I would watch that all day though, WUTANG chicken.
Fine! Hey, everybody, you can call me Wu-Tang, and after much cajoling and prodding, I have been convinced to throw together a cooking video series that we are calling Wu-Tang Kitchen. Today, we are going to be making one of my favorite meat recipes, a barbecue shredded beef. If this video motivates you to try and make this recipe, as I show in the video, you're going to need a few things, specifically any grill, propane, charcoal, or wood, and any crock pot, Instapot, or large sauce pot. As for the ingredients, you will need 3 pounds of beef, either a chuck roast or top sirloin roast will work really well here, 2 medium yellow or white onions, about a half a cup of apple cider vinegar, a 1/4 cup of your favorite barbecue sauce, and about a tablespoon of extra virgin olive oil for some cooking. For seasoning, you'll need salt and pepper, crushed red pepper, and a couple Grill Mate seasonings, specifically their barbecue seasoning, their smokehouse maple seasoning, and their chipotle and roasted garlic seasoning.
You can seriously do this with any kind of slow cooker. I'm using a piece of crap that I bought at like a Black Friday sale like 5 or 6 years ago.
So your very first easy step is going to be to turn your pot onto high and add your olive oil to the pot.
Alright, so our next step here is going to be to prepare the other stuff that's going to go into the pot with our meat while it cooks. I've got 2 onions here that I've already peeled a little bit. I like to use a lot of onion. I generally use about 1 onion less than the weight of the meat that I have going into the pot. So I have 3 pounds going into the pot. 3 minus 1 is 2. I have 2 onions that I'm going to chop up here. When I chop up onions for something like this, where it's going to be cooking for a long amount of time, I like to do a very coarse chop. The actual size of the chop doesn't really matter. What matters is that it doesn't take me forever to actually chop this up. There you go, very nice, coarse, imprecise chop, nothing too fancy, nothing that's gonna get me hired anywhere, but that's not the point. Okay, so for this step here, you've got your meat. Make sure I'm saying that there right. Got basically a boneless chuck roast, about 3 pounds, not too big. And then we've got our rubbing spices. Now, McCormick makes all these weird spices, right? But they're actually pretty good, and it's a lot easier than doing it yourself. So buy them, they're cheap. And we're going to be using a combination of those to rub down the meat here. Without further ado. Alright, so this is a pretty decent piece of meat here. Actually blocking the light with where I am. You'll notice there's little bits of brown there. It's brown, not green. That's just oxidization. That's basically when the red meat is sitting against a piece of plastic or styrofoam. It doesn't get oxygen, so it goes back to the color it's supposed to be. go. There's a properly rubbed piece of meat. Alright, so your next step is to sear off your meat on a propane or charcoal grill. Doesn't really matter, you can do it over wood if you need to. This will take a while. You're basically cooking it to about rare. And then once you've done that, you can part it out into 2 or 3 pieces in order to put it in your pot. So ultimately, when you're doing this, you want to give it a couple minutes on each side. It's still going to look very red because of the rub that's on there. It's already smelling good. So a little bit of a cooking tip here for everybody. Everybody likes to have that nice like cross-stitch, burnt-in grill pattern on their meat, and a very easy way to do that is by flipping it 4 times. So I started like this, and you can already tell that it's going to be like that. I screwed it up here. But basically what you want to do, flip it on the long edges like that, right, for your first flip. For your second flip, you want to change the direction and flip it on the same edge. And then ultimately you're going to flip it on that same edge again in order to get that nice pattern. It's not going to be too important here because I'm not serving this as a steak, but that's something you can do. This is a hell of a time-lapse video. The only reason that this piece of meat is sitting on here for this long, and you can tell that it's already rare just by pressing on it. It's a skill you learn after a while. The only reason it's on here for that long is because it's a 3-pound piece of meat. If this was anything smaller, it would have been taken off very quickly because the sear happens pretty fast. But we want to get the flavor to kind of burn into the meat before we throw it in our pot. Alright, now the final step of this sear is to take a look at the sides of your meat, here and here and here, and make sure that the majority of it has gotten the same type of sear that you want over the front of it. Obviously we didn't cut this piece of meat up before we put it on here, so it's not going to have that same type of sear on like the smaller pieces of the places where the fat's coming apart or anything like that. So that's not the end of the world here. And it looks like it's pretty good, so I'm going to actually go grab my cutting board and we are going to put this bad boy off the heat. Alright, so our next step here is actually going to be prepare the meat so that we can put it in the pot. You can throw it in just like this. The problem is it's a bit too big for the pot and it'll cook a bit unevenly. The amount of time that it's going to be in the pot, right behind the camera right now, is going to make it so that it's going to cook well enough over the course of time that it's going to be in there. But generally it's a better idea to actually, lots of juice there. Generally it's a better idea to part out your meat a little bit before you put it in the pot. So we've got a 3-pound piece of meat. I'll say we cut it into 3 pieces, so 1 part per pound. So we've got 3 pieces, about equal size of our meat, and that's going to go into the pot next. Alright, now that we have our meat in the pot, we are going to add our next couple disparate ingredients to put the barbecue in this barbecue shredded beef, and then we're going to let it cook for
about 3 hours.
Alright, and now that we've got all of the ingredients in the pot, we are just going to put the top over it, and we are going to cook it at a medium or high setting, depending on what you have. Alright, so the meat has been cooking on as close a setting to medium as I have in this crock pot for about 4 hours now. and you can see that the cook is pretty good. It's starting to completely fall apart. So what we're gonna do is we are going to change our crock pot settings to low. And then we are going to take out the meat and we are going to shred it with a couple of normal forks. We're gonna fork the meat. Okay. Okay, so that's about 3 pounds of beef all shredded up. The next step is going to be to reintroduce it to the pot slowly and carefully.
So depending on the fat content of the beef that you chose, one thing you're going to notice as you cook this meat is that the pot is going to get a lot more liquid in it than you expected. A lot of that's from the fat, and it's not what you would expect, especially considering you only added about 3/4 of a cup of liquid between your barbecue sauce and the apple cider vinegar. Now there are 2 ways to get rid of this extra liquid, and you can get rid of about as much or as little as you want, depending on how you like your meat. Now one of those methods is by just taking a ladle or a spoon and straining out the extra liquid until you have your meat at a liquid consistency that you want. And then another technique is to make a slurry using a little bit of water and cornstarch.
So to make a slurry, you only need 2 things. You need a little bit of water and you need cornstarch. You want to get about a little more than a tablespoon's worth of cornstarch and put it into the water for this amount of meat that we're working with. Then you just want to take a nice fork and you want to stir it together really well. The reason that you want to do this is because you want to make sure that the cornstarch is in liquid form when you introduce it to the pot. Otherwise, it will clump up and you'll get nasty things of cornstarch in your meat when you eat it.
Once you've cooked the shredded beef, after either draining the excess liquid or adding your slurry for about 45 minutes on low, your shredded beef is ready to serve. I prefer to use this recipe for street tacos, sandwiches, burritos, or breakfast dishes, but how you enjoy it is ultimately up to you. Thank you everyone who stuck around to the end of this video. I really hope you enjoyed it. Please let me know how yours turns out in the comments below, and let me know if you would like to see any other recipes or any improvements you think I could make to make these videos more digestible. I'm WUTANG, and I will see you next time.